Hi guys, and welcome back to another video, and today I'm going to be doing another character file review of another Last of the Summer Wine character, this being Ivy, who made her first appearance in the first ever episode of Last of the Summer Wine in 1973, the episode titled Funerals and Fish. So Ivy, as a character, she's played by Jane Freeman. Um, she played it all the way until the end of the show in 2010, but for some bizarre reason, I don't know the reasoning, she does not appear in the last ever episode of Last of the Summer Wine, How to Not Cry at Weddings, which makes it a very strange thing, but she does appear in the prior episode to the last ever episode. She appears in the penultimate episode, which is, I think it's called something like The Wheels Come Off or something. That's the name of the episode, I believe. Which I found really strange, like looking back at some of the episodes and stuff. And she is the second longest serving character in Last of the Summer Wine, I believe, appearing in a whopping 274 episodes of Last of the Summer Wine. So moving on to her as a character, she's quite loud and aggressive, very noisy. She's always shouting at Sid a lot in the early stuff. Sid was played by John Comer, I believe that's how you say his name. Could be something else, but that's the way I've read it. So sorry if I've mispronounced that. Obviously with Sid and their stuff in the cafe, and they're always arguing, bickering, and Sid's always saying, Fred to leave you," and I don't like you," sort of that sort of stuff. Which I find it really weird why they were together in the first place, as they really don't like each other. But I don't know, each their own. They they love each other in their own way. But yeah, the constant shouting, and I think Ivy's very powerful. Like she can whack people over the head, and she every time the trio come in and do something annoying to them, like either muck around and all sorts of stuff like that. I think she's a really great character, and I do like her real aggressiveness. She absolutely hates Compo, I think, out of the whole trio. Um, she's always willing to whack people or move people out of the way, all sorts of stuff like that, which I always find quite funny. Um, but her and Sid, I think, have a really good relationship, and I do like their dynamic. And running Sid's cafe together, I think, was always really great. Ivy is a part of Lost of the Summer Wine as Clegg is, because they're both the two long-standing characters appearing in the majority of the episodes, which I think is a really cool aspect to have, that they were there from the start and sort of the end. Ivy, not really, but that's because of the last ever episode, which I still find odd. But moving on to other parts of like Ivy being on the program, she never has a surname, which I didn't even realize this until coming to make this video. She never has a surname. It's never mentioned throughout any of the episodes of Last of the Summer Wine, and nor does Sid. So I thought if Sid had a surname, then maybe. But no, she doesn't have a surname. And I don't even think there's any reference to it in First of the Summer Wine, because even then she would have a different surname because she married Sid. But no, that's never mentioned, never said at all, which I'm quite surprised about, and kind of shocked me, to be fair. And I like her dynamic with Crusher, played by Jonathan Lindsay, who I had the pleasure of meeting. A very nice bloke. It was really great meeting him. So I really like their dynamic, and it's sort of in the same way as Sid. She sort of mistreats him, but she always calls him Milburn, even though he likes to go by Crusher. So I like that sort of dynamic between them as well. And she always sort of calls him sort of like a stupid boy in a way, not like the Captain Mannering sort of thing, but you know what I mean, sort of it's like he's. She always thinks he's quite stupid and stuff, and she always says what the blood and stomach pills all the time, and stuff like that. And I think she's very powerful, and she's more sort of similar to Nora Batty in a way, but she's got slightly different qualities. I think she's more louder than Nora Batty. But Compo likes her, but not in the same way as he likes Nora Batty, which I think is kind of interesting. That he likes her, but not in that sort of way. But I think Sid said that he could have her if he wanted. So that's nice. Moving on to like Ivy though, obviously with the tea room sort of stuff, when they have their sort of like tea parties in most of the towards like in the 90s, that's when they start having the proper tea parties, late 80s, early 90s. So they start having their little tea party and stuff. There's always this gag where one of them, they all have all the cakes like on the table, and then one of them takes the bigger cake, and sort of like you always get these weird. It's always a cafe star in like Jane Freeman, obviously both of them, who play Nora Batty and Ivy. They always have this sort of expression where they're like, "You took that cake," like they wanted it. So it's sort of quite funny. Yeah, that's why I always find that funny. So moving on to Sid's calf, like I sort of like the dynamic of her and Sid in the calf and that sort of cafe element. But you can tell in certain episodes. There's an episode which involved the bedding rolls. They said it, and it was actually turns out that Sid was going out, and he was going actually out to do like country and western sort of cowboy stuff with Wally, and but Ivy jumps to conclusions and thinks that he's having an affair, which I think is a bit weird. Why would you suddenly think that? There we go. And so that's when she gets really emotional because she actually does love him. It just doesn't look that they love each other from the outside, but they do on the inside, which is sort of always weird in programs when you ever see that they sort of like they like each other, like on the inside, but not on the outside. They seem to think that they're like not very nice. Do you know what, something else I'm going to mention about Ivy is that there's an episode, I think it's in series 3, where like everyone goes on holiday to I think like Scarborough or Whitby or something like that. Very nice place. I've been there on holiday. Very nice place. They basically all go in there, and they're all like on holiday, and Ivy's pretending she's really posh. She's putting on a posh voice, which I suppose is where the keeping up appearances elements, which starts to actually magnified in certain other characters in Last of the Summer Wine, particularly Edie Pegden, which I'll do in the future. So it's sort of like that. She always puts on that fake kind of posh voice whilst they're there and stuff. And it's like it was lovely, or whatever. And they like make it all posh, which I always kind of funny. Those are great episodes. I recommend you should check out that one when they go on holiday because it's a really great episode. Something else I'm going to mention about Ivy is that I do like when all of the ladies get in the car and they don't want to go in Edie's car, and they're all sort of like moaning like, "Oh, we don't want to die yet," because Edie's an absolutely awful, terrible driver. And I love how Ivy's always like, "Well, I'd rather not," but they go into it anyway, and then they might cause a crash, and then they might end up seeing Howard and Pearl and all that sort of stuff. Howard and Marina, all of that sort of stuff. But I do like how Ivy isn't so much as a massive character in Last of the Summer. If I'm completely honest, I think she's a good character and she was there throughout the whole thing. It's just she's involved in the plot, but not in the same way as the main trio is. It's sort of like a side plot line. It's like they're always there when they go in the calf, and they always have their chats. But you can tell Ivy is a person who just doesn't like a lot of people. Because she despises Compo and Clegg and Foggy, and she doesn't like Foggy either, or blame Maya, and always thinks they're stupid. I'll tell you one thing, there's a really funny thing, I think it's also from Series 3. I don't know why I'm mentioning Series 3 so much, I just think it's a good series, and I think you should check out. Basically, I think they have this mate called, Stuart or something like that, and they lift up their leg to, he's pointing at their leg or whatever, they all lift up their leg, and then suddenly Ivy walks in, she starts shouting at all of them because they just look like they're doing strange stuff. And there's also another one where they do I think this is in series 1 or series 2, where they try and stick buns in their mouth, loads of buns, like scone kind of buns in their mouth or whatever. And then Ivy comes in and end up getting choked. I think Sid chokes on some other thing. I think even Blame Maya gets choked on it, which is so funny. And there's always other things with Compo, is that he always immediately wants to just harass and attack Ivy all the time. Don't know why. He's just a very odd character, and I think that it's just a bit odd in it, but is very funny nonetheless. But I do like Ivy. She is an integral part of Last of the Summer Wine. And yeah, I think she's a good character. I do love her dynamic with Sid, and Crusher as well. But I felt like towards the end, the late 90s going into the 2000s, and then obviously 2010, I felt like she was a bit lacked because she didn't have that person with her, like a sort of like other person to be with, sort of in a way. So there's less arguments back and forth. I do love the constant arguments. Like, I just think that's really great, and it makes more of the episode enjoyable. I just love seeing Waxy and they have all their stuff going on. Yeah, it's just really great. I think that Ivy was a great character, and Jane Freeman, who did absolutely an amazing job, and I just think she was a very solid character, and without her in Lost of Mine would probably be a very different show, maybe. It's just Sid's Cafe is such an iconic location. I've been there. Just truly a beautiful place, Homeforth, and it was lovely to go there 2 years ago. I can't believe it was 2 years ago I went down there. But yeah, I think that her as a character is very integral to Lost in Summer Wine, and yeah. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in a video soon enough. And goodbye. See you soon.